The night was quiet on the edge of the human colony. The stars above shone like cold diamonds, and the forest slept in silence. 17-year-old Ethan Cole sat on the roof of his family's old farmhouse, staring at the sky. He often dreamed of leaving this dusty world, of traveling to the great alien cities he had only seen in holoscreens. But his life was simple: chores in the day, silence at night, and no adventure at all. Until that night. A flash cut across the heavens. Not like a shooting star. Brighter. Hotter. The air trembled as if the sky itself was tearing apart. Ethan stood up, eyes wide. A burning light streaked down toward the forest near his home. Then came the sound, a crash like thunder, shaking the ground under his feet. His heart raced. A ship had fallen. Not human. Not colony craft. Something else. Ethan grabbed his jacket and ran into the trees. Branches whipped against his arms. The smell of smoke grew stronger with every step. He pushed through the thick brush until he reached a clearing. There it was. A small alien shuttle lay broken and burning, metal twisted and sparks flying. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its side. The ship hissed like a wounded beast. Ethan froze, fear creeping into his chest. He had heard stories of alien smugglers, raiders, even assassins passing near the colony. If anyone survived the crash, they could be dangerous. Then he heard it. A weak cry. Cautiously, he moved closer. The shuttle door was half open, smoke drifting out. Inside on the floor lay a figure, an alien woman. Her skin shimmered pale silver under the firelight. Her dark hair was tangled, her clothes torn. She was clearly hurt, clutching her side with trembling hands. But what froze Ethan in place was something else. Her belly. She was pregnant. The woman's glowing eyes met his. Her voice was soft but urgent, carrying the sound of someone who had no time left. Please, help me. Ethan's throat went dry. He wanted to run. Every warning he had ever heard screamed inside his head. Don't trust aliens. Don't get involved. But her eyes, they were filled with pain and fear. He stepped closer. You're hurt, he whispered. She nodded weakly. They are hunting me. I cannot stay here. If they find me, they will kill my child. Her voice broke and she clutched her stomach tighter. Ethan's heart pounded. Hunting her? Who? And why was she here on his colony, alone and broken? Before he could ask, a distant roar echoed across the night sky. Engines, more ships. The woman's eyes widened with terror. They are coming. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Please, human boy, if you have any kindness in your heart, hide me. Protect me. Ethan looked around the burning shuttle, then at the forest. If hunters were landing, they would search everywhere. If he left her, she would be found in minutes. But if he helped her, he would be in danger too. His father's words came back to him, words spoken years ago before the man passed away. Courage is not about fighting wars, Ethan. Courage is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Ethan swallowed hard. He slipped his arm under the alien woman's shoulder. She gasped in pain but leaned against him. Slowly, he pulled her out of the wreck and into the dark forest. The engines grew louder. Shadows of ships moved across the sky, beams of light sweeping the ground. They were looking for her. Ethan dragged her through the trees, his breath ragged, his body trembling with fear. The woman whispered again. My name is Lysera. I am wife of Kalor of the High Houses. Ethan had no idea what that meant, but the way she said it with both pride and fear told him it was important. Maybe her husband was powerful. Maybe that was why enemies wanted her dead. But right now she was not a queen, not a wife of someone rich. Right now she was only a mother trying to protect her child, and she needed him. At last they reached the edge of his family's farmland. The old barn stood silent, abandoned except for rusted tools and dust. He pushed the doors open and guided her inside. She collapsed on the hay, breathing hard. Her skin glowed faintly, sweat on her brow. Thank you, she whispered, tears in her shining eyes. Ethan looked back toward the forest. Bright searchlights cut through the trees. Voices in a strange alien tongue carried on the wind. They were here, hunters. Fear clawed at him, but it was too late to turn back. He had made his choice. The boy who dreamed of stars was now standing between an alien mother and her enemies. And he knew. This was only the beginning. The barn was dark except for a thin beam of moonlight slipping through the broken roof. Ethan leaned against the wooden wall, breathing fast. His hands shook. His heart hammered so loud he was sure the hunters outside could hear it. On the hay lay the alien woman, Lysera. Her silver skin glistened with sweat. Her hands pressed tightly against her round belly as if shielding the unborn child from the world. For a long moment, Ethan could not move. He had just dragged a pregnant alien into his family's barn. Hunters were only minutes away. His life had been normal yesterday, but now everything was different. Lysera's voice broke the silence. "You should not have helped me," she whispered, her voice weak but steady. Ethan blinked, confused. "You begged me to," he said. Her glowing eyes met his. "Yes, but now you are marked. If they find you with me, they will kill you too." Ethan swallowed hard. He had thought of that. He had thought of running, leaving her in the wreckage. But somehow when he saw her face and heard her cry, his legs would not let him walk away. From outside came the faint hum of engines. Searchlights moved across the fields, beams of cold light cutting through the night. Voices shouted in a language Ethan did not know. Lysera tried to sit up but gasped in pain. Ethan rushed to steady her. "Don't move. You're too weak." Her hand gripped his arm. "Listen to me. I am not just a traveler. I am wife to Kalor, High Lord of the Tyrian houses. He is one of the richest, most powerful men in the Orion Rim." Ethan stared at her. He had heard rumors of the Tyrians, aliens who built entire floating cities of crystal and gold, who owned fleets of warships. But those were only stories told in taverns. Now one of them was lying in his barn. "If your husband is so powerful," Ethan said slowly, "why are you here alone?" Lysera closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Because power brings enemies. My husband's rivals want our child dead. They hired hunters. My ship was attacked. I fled, but I fell from the sky." She clutched her stomach again, trembling. "If they find me, they will cut the air from my body and deliver it to my husband as proof." Ethan felt sick. The thought of anyone harming an unborn child twisted his chest. He thought of his mother who had died giving birth to his younger sister. He thought of how fragile life was. Another shout echoed outside. Closer this time. Boots on dirt. Ethan's breath caught. They were searching the farm. Lysera's hand squeezed his. Her glowing eyes burned into his soul. "You can still leave. Hide yourself. Pretend you never saw me. No one will know. But if you stay, you will be hunted too." For a moment, the barn seemed to spin around him. Fear pressed heavy on his chest. He was only a boy, 17, with no weapons, no training. How could he stand against alien killers? He thought of running, of slipping back to the farmhouse, locking the door and pretending the crash had never happened. But then he looked at her, at the sweat on her brow, at the way her arms wrapped around her unborn child, at the quiet strength in her gaze even while wounded and afraid. And suddenly Ethan remembered his father's voice again. "Son, one day you will face a choice. Do nothing and stay safe. Or do what is right even if it cost you." Ethan clenched his fists. He had lost his father years ago. But tonight he could almost hear the man standing beside him. "I won't leave you," Ethan said at last, his voice firm. Lysera's lips parted in surprise. "Why? You owe me nothing." "Because you're not just some alien. You're a mother, and your child deserves a chance." Before she could answer, the barn door rattled. Ethan froze. A beam of light cut under the crack. The hunters were here. Quickly he pulled a tarp over her and grabbed a rusted pitchfork from the wall. His hands shook, but he held it tight. The door creaked open. A tall shadow stepped inside, scanning with a glowing visor. The alien hunter's armor gleamed in the moonlight. His weapon hummed with deadly energy. Ethan's throat went dry. His whole body screamed at him to run, but he planted his feet, blocking the path. The hunter tilted his head, surprised to see only a human boy standing there. He barked something in his strange language and shoved Ethan aside. The pitchfork rattled to the floor. The alien moved deeper into the barn. Ethan's mind raced. If the hunter pulled off the tarp, Lysera was finished. And so was he. Then an idea flashed in his head. He picked up an old lantern from the floor, lifted it high, and shouted, "Hey!" The hunter spun around just as Ethan hurled the lantern into a pile of hay. The flames burst instantly, smoke rising thick. The hunter cursed and rushed toward the fire, distracted. Ethan grabbed the tarp, pulled it tighter over Lysera, and whispered, "Stay quiet." Through the smoke, he pushed her deeper into the shadows. His lungs burned, his eyes watered, but he did not stop. Outside, more voices shouted. The fire alarm in the barn wailed. The hunters would think the wreck had sparked another blaze. They might leave. Ethan's heart pounded so hard he thought it would break his ribs. But when he looked at Lysera again, hidden, safe for now, he knew. He had made his choice. The boy who once dreamed of adventure had stepped onto a path he could never leave, and somewhere in the smoke-filled night, destiny was waiting. The fire in the barn burned only for a short while. Ethan had managed to put it out before it spread too far, but the smoke still hung heavy in the air. His chest ached, his clothes smelled of ash, and his hands trembled. Lysera lay hidden in the far corner, breathing shallowly. Her skin glowed faintly silver, the light dimmer now like a candle losing its flame. She was weak, too weak to move without help. Ethan knelt beside her. "They almost found you," he whispered. Her glowing eyes blinked open. "You saved me again, but they will not stop. They know I live. They will search until they find me." Ethan clenched his jaw. Outside, the colony was no longer silent. He could hear distant boots stomping across dirt roads, the metallic hum of scanners sweeping through fields, and the low growl of alien engines in the sky. The hunters were closing in. The pressure builds at dawn. The first light of day spread across the horizon. Ethan had not slept. Every few minutes he peeked through the cracks of the barn wall. Alien soldiers in dark armor patrolled the area. Strange machines floated in the air scanning for life. Ethan's stomach twisted. They were tightening the circle, inch by inch, closing around his farm like wolves around prey. Lysera tried to sit up, wincing in pain. Ethan hurried to steady her. "You must not waste your strength," he whispered. She touched her belly and shook her head. "It is not my strength I fear losing. It is his." She meant her unborn child. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at her trembling hands, at her pale lips, and felt anger rising inside him. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a criminal. She was just a mother. And yet, armies hunted her. He whispered fiercely, "I won't let them take you." The knock at the door that afternoon, the sound of heavy boots echoed on the farmhouse porch. Ethan froze. Through the barn crack he saw them, 2 hunters in black armor standing outside his home. One pounded on the door with a fist. Thud, thud, thud. "Human," a rough voice shouted in broken English. "We search your land, open." Ethan's blood turned cold. They were at his house. If his mother or sister opened the door, they would search every corner, including the barn. He had to act fast. Ethan grabbed an old hunting rifle, unloaded and useless, but enough to look threatening. He ran to the farmhouse before his mother could answer. He flung the door open, forcing a confident smile. "What do you want?" he asked. The hunters loomed over him, scanning him with red visors. One of them growled, "Ship crash. Dangerous fugitive. You see anyone?" Ethan's pulse thundered. He forced himself to shake his head. "No, just farm animals here. No aliens." The taller hunter leaned forward until his visor was inches from Ethan's face. "You lie?" Ethan swallowed hard. His legs wanted to give out, but he held his ground. "I'm just a kid. Why would I lie to you?" The hunter studied him for a long, terrible moment. Finally, he grunted and turned away. But the other raised a scanner. The device beeped and flashed red, pointing toward the barn. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The shorter hunter started walking toward the barn doors. Ethan panicked. If they opened it, Lysera would be found, he thought fast. "Wait," he shouted. "The barn is falling apart. Old chemicals in there from my father's tools. Dangerous, could explode." The hunters paused. One looked back at him suspiciously. Then, after a tense silence, they lowered their scanners. "Stay inside," one warned. "We come again." They left, their boots thudding down the road. Ethan collapsed against the doorframe, his whole body shaking. Secrets revealed. When he returned to the barn, Lysera was staring at him with wide eyes. "You risked your life for me again," she whispered. Ethan sat beside her, rubbing his tired eyes. "I couldn't let them find you." Lysera's hand brushed his arm gently. "You do not understand, human boy. If they catch me, they will not only kill me, they will punish anyone who helped. That means you. That means your family." Ethan froze. The truth hit him like ice water. By hiding her, he had put his own family in danger. He looked down at his trembling hands. For the first time, doubt clawed at his chest. Had he made a mistake? But then Lysera spoke again, her voice soft but filled with quiet strength. "You are only 17. Yet you show more courage than men twice your age. Do not doubt yourself. You are the reason my child still lives." Ethan met her glowing eyes. He saw pain but also hope. Hope that somehow, against all odds, she and her unborn child might survive. And that hope rested on him. The cliffhanger that night. Ethan tried to sleep on the barn floor, but every noise outside made his eyes snap open. The hunters had not gone far. He could hear their engines circling in the distance. They were watching, waiting. Suddenly Lysera gasped. Ethan sat up quickly. Her face was pale, her body trembling. "The child." "Too soon," she whispered. Ethan's blood ran cold. She wasn't just weak. She was going into labor. And outside, alien hunters closed in tighter every hour. Ethan looked toward the barn doors, fear and determination burning together in his chest. He was only a boy, trapped in a hopeless fight, but he knew one thing for certain. He would not abandon her, no matter what came next. The night dragged on heavy and restless. Ethan sat against the barn wall, eyes wide, fighting sleep. Every rustle in the dark made his heart race. Every low hum of alien engines outside reminded him. The hunters were still searching. The circle was closing tighter. Beside him, Lysera shivered under the tarp. Her face glowed faintly silver in the moonlight, sweat shining on her brow. Her hands pressed hard against her belly. She was strong, but Ethan could see it. Her time was running out. At last, her trembling voice broke the silence. "Ethan, we cannot stay here. If I remain, they will find me." "They always do." Ethan looked at her in shock. "You can't even walk properly. How do you expect to move?" Lysera's glowing eyes met his, filled with quiet desperation. "There is a beacon. My husband left it for me before I fled. If I activate it, Kaelor will come. He will bring ships, soldiers, protection. But the beacon, it is far, too far to reach without help." Ethan's throat tightened. So there was hope. A chance to call her husband, to end the chase. But leaving the barn meant stepping straight into the jaws of the hunters. "Where is it?" he asked. Lysera raised a shaking hand and pointed toward the dark hills beyond the colony. "An old outpost. Abandoned long ago. That is where the beacon lies hidden." Ethan's heart sank. He knew that place. The outpost was 3 miles through forest and rocky ground, dangerous even in daylight. And now, with alien hunters crawling everywhere, he should have said no. He should have told her it was impossible. But when he looked at her pale face and trembling hands protecting her unborn child, the words would not come. Instead, he heard himself whisper, "Then we go tonight." Preparing for flight, Ethan scavenged what little he could. A flashlight with weak batteries, a rusty hunting knife, his father's old hover bike still working after years of dust, a single blanket to keep her warm. He returned to Lysera and knelt beside her. "Can you ride?" "The bike isn't strong, but it's fast enough to outrun patrols if we're lucky." Lysera nodded slowly, though her breath came sharp and uneven. "You risk everything for me." "Why?" Ethan paused. He wanted to say he didn't know. But deep inside he did. "Because you're not just running for yourself. You're running for your child, and no one deserves to be born into death." For a moment, her glowing eyes softened. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You remind me of Kaelor," she whispered. "Long ago, before he was powerful, he was like you, brave, foolish, full of fire." Ethan helped her to her feet, and together they stumbled toward the barn doors. The chase begins. The hover bike roared to life, its old engine coughing before smoothing into a steady hum. Ethan climbed on, pulling Lysera carefully behind him. She clung to him weakly, her breath warm against his shoulder. The barn doors creaked open. Cold night air rushed in. Ethan tightened his grip on the handlebars. "Hold on," he whispered. The bike shot forward, streaking across the open fields. For a few glorious seconds, Ethan felt free. The wind cut through his hair, the stars wheeled above, and the ground blurred beneath them. But freedom never lasts. A shrill alarm echoed in the distance. Bright lights snapped on in the sky. Hunters had seen them. Engines roared behind. Shadowy ships swooped down, beams of red light sweeping across the fields. "They've found us," Lysera cried, clutching her stomach. Ethan leaned low, forcing the old bike faster. Dirt flew, grass bent under their speed. He swerved hard, dodging the beams of light. Shots of plasma tore the earth beside them, burning holes in the ground. One blast scorched so close that heat seared his arm. But Ethan didn't stop. Through the forest, he veered into the trees, branches whipping at their faces. The hunters' ships howled overhead, but the thick forest slowed their chase. Almost there, Ethan shouted, though his voice was drowned by the bike's roar. The forest path twisted, roots rising like claws from the earth. Twice the bike nearly flipped, but Ethan held steady. His arms ached, his heart thundered, yet his focus sharpened. Behind them, the hunters didn't give up. He could hear their boots pounding, their voices barking commands. They were on foot now, closing fast. Lysera's grip around him grew weaker. "Ethan, hurry!" The child. Her words broke into gasps. Fear stabbed him deeper than any blade. He pressed harder on the bike, pushing it beyond safe limits. The outpost at last, through the trees, Ethan saw it. A crumbling tower of metal and stone, half buried in vines. The abandoned outpost. Relief surged in his chest. But the hunters were still behind them, their footsteps crashing closer. He skidded the bike to a stop at the base of the tower. "Inside," he shouted. Lysera staggered off the bike, nearly collapsing. Ethan caught her, half carrying her toward the cracked doorway. Inside, the outpost was dark and cold. Dust floated in the air like ghosts. Lysera pointed weakly toward a panel on the far wall. "There, the beacon." Ethan rushed to it. His hands shook as he wiped away dust, revealing a small device hidden inside. A crystal core pulsed faintly, waiting to be awakened. He turned back to Lysera. She lay on the floor, clutching her belly, her face pale. "Activate it," she gasped. "Bring him. Bring Kaelor." Ethan nodded, reaching for the beacon. Cliffhanger outside, heavy boots stomped against the earth. Shadows fell across the doorway. The hunters had arrived. Ethan's hand hovered over the beacon. If he pressed it, help might come. But if he hesitated even a second, the hunters would storm inside. Sweat dripped from his brow. His chest heaved. It was now or never. Ethan slammed his hand on the beacon. The core lit up, glowing bright, sending a signal streaking into the stars. But at that exact moment, the barn doors burst open, and the hunters poured inside. The beacon glowed bright in Ethan's hands, its crystal core pulsing with a steady rhythm, like a heart beating out into the stars. Somewhere far away, the signal would reach Kaelor. Somewhere far away, help was coming. But here, in the broken outpost, death had already arrived. The hunters stormed through the doorway, their armored boots pounding like drums of war. Red visors glowed in the dark, weapons raised. Their voices barked commands in a harsh alien tongue. Ethan spun toward Lysera. She lay on the cold floor, clutching her belly, eyes squeezed shut in pain. She was too weak to move, too fragile to fight. If they found her now, it was over. Ethan's breath came fast. His body screamed at him to run, to hide, to escape. But he looked at Lysera's trembling hands and the life she carried, and something inside him hardened. He could not run. He would not run. Standing against giants, the hunters spread out, their weapons sweeping the shadows. One of them pointed at Ethan and barked, "Human boy, move aside." Ethan's hands shook, but he stepped in front of Lysera, planting himself between her and the hunters. "She's under my protection," he said, his voice trembling but clear. The hunters laughed, a cruel metallic sound. "You, a child? Stand against us?" One raised his blaster, the weapon humming with deadly energy. Ethan's knees wanted to buckle, but he remembered his father's words. Courage is protecting those who cannot protect themselves. He gripped the rusty hunting knife in his hand. The blade was dull, tiny compared to their weapons, but it was all he had. "If you want her," Ethan said, forcing steel into his voice, "you'll have to go through me." For a moment, the hunters hesitated. Maybe they had not expected defiance from a human boy. Then the leader snarled and stepped forward. The fight. The blaster fired. Ethan dove to the side. The shot scorched the wall where his chest had been. Dust and sparks filled the air. Adrenaline surged. He leapt up and swung the knife, slashing at the hunter's arm. The blade barely scratched the armor, but the surprise made the alien stumble back. Another hunter lunged. Ethan grabbed a loose pipe from the ground and swung it hard. The clang echoed, jarring his arms. The hunter reeled, visor cracked. But there were too many. 3 more closed in, weapons humming. Ethan's lungs burned. His arms ached. His body screamed he couldn't win. But his heart roared louder. "Come on," he shouted, eyes blazing. The traps as they advanced, Ethan darted behind a broken console and yanked a lever. Sparks erupted from the ceiling. Old wires snapped loose, whipping down like snakes. Electricity crackled, striking one hunter's armor. He convulsed and collapsed with a hiss. Ethan grabbed a rusted fuel canister and rolled it toward another. When the alien kicked it aside, Ethan hurled a rock. The canister burst, flames exploding across the floor. The outpost shook with fire and smoke. The hunters shouted, blinded by the blaze. Ethan coughed hard, lungs burning, but he didn't stop. He had no strength, no weapons, but he had his wits, and tonight that had to be enough. Lysera sprang through the chaos. Lysera's weak voice called out, "Ethan, behind you!" He spun just in time to block a hunter's strike. The blow knocked him flat, pain exploding in his chest. He gasped, vision blurring. The hunter loomed above him, weapon raised for the final strike. But Lysera, trembling and pale, pushed herself to her knees. She raised her hand and a faint pulse of alien energy flared from her palm. It wasn't strong, just enough to shove the hunter back a few steps. "Go!" she cried. "Fight!" Ethan's heart surged. If she, broken and bleeding, could still stand for her child, then so could he. With a roar, Ethan lunged up, slamming the pipe into the hunter's visor. Glass shattered. The alien fell with a scream. The beacon burns, but victory was short. The leader of the hunters raised his weapon, aiming straight at Lysera. Ethan froze. Too far. Too slow. The hunter snarled, "The child dies tonight." Time slowed. Ethan looked at Lysera, at her glowing eyes filled with fear but also trust, at her arms wrapped around her belly, and without thinking, Ethan leapt. The blaster fired. The shot tore into Ethan's shoulder, pain exploding white-hot. He cried out but didn't stop. He slammed into the hunter, knocking the weapon aside. They crashed into the beacon. The device sparked, glowing brighter as Ethan's blood smeared across its crystal. The signal pulsed stronger, faster, like a scream into the void. Ethan fell to the ground, chest heaving, blood soaking his shirt. The cliffhanger. The hunters closed in again, furious, weapons raised. Smoke, fire, and sparks filled the outpost. Lysera crawled toward Ethan, tears streaming down her face. "You foolish, brave child," she whispered. Ethan coughed, pain tearing through him, but a faint smile touched his lips. "At least, he knows now," he said weakly, nodding at the beacon. Outside, thunder shook the sky. Not from storms. From ships. Something vast was descending through the clouds. The hunters froze, looking upward in sudden fear. Ethan's eyes flickered, half closed. Help had come. But would it arrive in time? The night sky shook as if the heavens themselves were tearing open. From the clouds above, a colossal ship descended, blotting out the stars. Its hull shimmered with silver and gold, carved with symbols of the Tyrian houses. The hunters froze, their red visors flashing with alarm. Ethan lay on the floor of the ruined outpost, his shoulder burning from the blaster wound. His breath came shallow, every inhale sharp with pain. He could barely lift his head, but he saw the fear in the hunter's stance. Whoever was coming, they knew they could not match it. Lysera crawled to his side, her hands trembling as she pressed against his wound. "Hold on, Ethan, just hold on a little longer." Ethan managed a weak smile. "I told you, I'd keep you safe." Outside, the earth shook as the massive ship landed in a burst of dust and light. The hunters turned in panic, shouting orders. Some tried to flee into the forest. Others raised their weapons toward the sky. Then the ship's ramp lowered. The Tycoon appears a line of alien guards marched out first, clad in armor that gleamed like polished steel. Their weapons hummed with deadly power, trained instantly on the hunters. And behind them walked a man who needed no introduction. Tall, broad-shouldered, his skin the same pale silver as Lysera's, but his presence carried the weight of empires. His cloak shimmered with golden threads, and his eyes blazed like stars caught in fire. This was Kaelor, the Tyrian millionaire, ruler of industries across 100 worlds, feared and respected in equal measure. But when his gaze fell on Lysera, there was no sign of the ruthless Tycoon the galaxy whispered about. Instead, his face broke, raw emotion flooding his eyes. "Lysera," he whispered, voice cracking. Lysera's tears spilled as she reached out a trembling hand. "Kaelor, you came." The battle turns, the hunters, desperate, fired their weapons at Kaelor's guards. But the Tyrian soldiers moved like shadows, shields flashing, blasters roaring. In seconds, 2 hunters fell, their armor scorched black. The others tried to flee, but Kaelor lifted a hand and a wave of energy burst from a device on his wrist. The ground shook, pinning the hunters to their knees. "You dared touch what is mine," Kaelor thundered. His voice carried the force of a storm. echoing through the forest. The hunters trembled, their defiance gone. Ethan, half-conscious, could barely watch. He felt Lysera's hand holding his tightly. Safe. Finally safe. The Tycoon meets the human. Kaylor rushed forward, falling to his knees beside his wife. His great hands cupped her face gently, almost afraid to touch her wounds. My love, forgive me. I should have been there. Lysera shook her head weakly. No, Kaylor. You could not have known. It was he. She turned her glowing eyes toward Ethan. He saved me. Again and again. Without him, our child would be gone. Kaylor followed her gaze. His eyes fell on Ethan, bloodied, trembling, struggling to stay awake. For a moment, the mighty Tycoon was silent. Then he bowed his head low, almost to the floor before the boy. Ethan blinked, confused. What are you doing? Kaylor's voice broke as he spoke. You protected what I hold most dear. You stood against death itself, though you had no reason, no strength, no army. You gave my wife and child a chance to live. His voice cracked. His eyes shone wet with tears. For that, I owe you more than I can ever repay. The healer's touch. Kaylor looked between them, his face a storm of pride and grief. I will not let him die. Not this boy. Ethan's words as the medics worked, Ethan's eyes fluttered. His lips parted weakly. I didn't want rewards, he whispered. Just had to do the right thing. Kaylor leaned closer, his face stricken. You ask for nothing, yet you deserve everything. Tell me, boy. Tell me what you wish and I will give it. Ethan coughed, his voice faint but steady. I only want your child to know. Humans are not weak, not greedy, but friends worth trusting. Lysera gasped softly, her tears falling. Kaylor's eyes closed as if pierced by the words. When they opened again, tears streamed down his face. The Tycoon, feared across the galaxy, was crying before a human boy. You have my vow, Kaylor whispered. My son will grow with that truth. He will honor the courage of the human who saved him before he was born. The sky breaks outside. The last of the hunters were dragged away in chains. The forest fell silent except for the hum of the Tyrian ship. Kaylor lifted Lysera gently into his arms, holding her as if she were the most fragile treasure in the universe. Then he turned to Ethan, still weak but alive. You will come with us, Kaylor said firmly. No one who touches my heart like this will be left behind. But Ethan only smiled faintly, eyes heavy with exhaustion. I think my place is here. Kaylor froze, stunned. For the first time in years, someone had refused him. Cliffhanger. The Tycoon looked down at Ethan. This boy, this fragile human who had shown more bravery than armies. His chest tightened with a feeling he had not known in a long time. Humility. He bowed his head again. Then tell me, Ethan Cole. What do you ask of me? The boy's lips moved, his answer soft but clear. And Kaylor's tears fell harder, for the boy's request was not for gold, not for ships, not for power. It was something far greater. The outpost was quiet now. The fires had burned low, the hunters lay defeated, and the Tyrian ship stood like a giant shadow against the dawn sky. Inside the ruins, Ethan lay weak but breathing, his shoulder wrapped in glowing medical patches. Kaylor, the mighty Tycoon of the Tyrian houses, knelt beside him. The most powerful man in half the Orion Rim bowed before a human farm boy. Tell me, Kaylor said softly, voice heavy with emotion. What do you ask of me? Gold ships? A place among my people? Say the word and it will be yours. Ethan's eyes fluttered open. His face was pale, lips trembling. He coughed once, then managed a faint smile. I don't want your gold. Or your ships. Kaylor frowned, confused. Then what, boy? You saved my wife, my unborn heir. There is no price too high. Ethan's voice came weak but steady. I just want one promise. When your child is born, when he grows, tell him about tonight. Tell him that a human helped save his life. Tell him we're not weak or greedy. Tell him we can be trusted. The Tycoon's tear silence fell heavy in the outpost. Even the Tyrian soldiers lowered their heads as if the boy's words carried more weight than 1,000 battles. Kaylor's chest heaved. He who had never bowed to kings or emperors felt his throat close with grief and awe. The boy asked for nothing for himself. No riches, no power. No reward, only a memory. Only a truth to pass on. Tears welled in Kaylor's burning eyes. He reached out, taking Ethan's trembling hand in his large, strong grip. You have broken me, child, he whispered. With all my wealth, I thought I understood value. But I see now I knew nothing. The great Tycoon lowered his head until it almost touched the ground. I swear on the high houses. I swear on the stars themselves. My son will grow knowing the courage of Ethan Cole, the human who saved him before he took his first breath. He will honor your people as allies, not as lesser beings. The oath echoed through the hall like thunder. Lysera's words. Lysera leaned close, tears shimmering on her silver cheeks. She brushed Ethan's hair gently from his forehead. You were my shield, Ethan. You carried me when I had no strength left. You gave my child a future. You are more than a boy. You are hope. Ethan smiled faintly, though his eyes glistened. I just couldn't let you die. Her hand trembled as she touched her stomach. Someday he will know your name. And when he asks me what a true protector looks like, I will tell him, Ethan Cole, a human farm boy who carried the weight of worlds on his shoulders. The farewell. The Tyrian medics lifted Ethan gently. Kaelor ordered them to take him aboard the great ship, to heal him fully. But Ethan shook his head weakly. My place is here. My family needs me. Kaelor's brow furrowed. He was a man who bought fleets with a gesture, who bent nations with a word. He was not used to refusal. Yet this boy stood firm. You would turn down the stars? Kaelor asked. Ethan gave a faint laugh. The stars will wait. My family won't. Kaelor's eyes burned with fresh tears. He understood. He too had once been young and bound to home before power chained him to galaxies. The Tycoon placed a heavy golden medallion in Ethan's hand. If ever you call my name, the houses will answer. You are no longer just human, Ethan Cole. You are brother to the Tyrians. The departure. The dawn sky split with light as Kaelor's ship lifted into the air. Its engines roared, shaking the forest, scattering the smoke. Ethan stood outside the outpost, leaning on his arm, watching it ascend. Lysera waved from the ramp, her other hand resting protectively on her belly. Kaelor bowed his head one last time, his eyes locked on the boy who had changed him forever. Then the ship rose higher, vanishing into the stars. The forest fell silent again. Ethan exhaled, his body sagging. For the first time in days, there was no danger, no fire, no chase. Only quiet, epilogue. Years later, time passed. The colony returned to its simple life. Ethan healed, though a faint scar always marked his shoulder. To most, he was still just a farm boy. But inside, he carried a secret greater than any treasure. Far away in the glittering halls of the Tyrian houses, a child was born. The son of Kaelor and Lysera grew strong, his silver skin gleaming under alien suns. And as he grew, he listened to a story told to him every year on his birthday. The story of a human boy named Ethan, who stood against hunters, who carried his mother through fire, who asked for no riches, only friendship. That child grew into a leader, one who spoke often of humans as allies, not prey. He built bridges where others built walls. His people followed him, for his words carried truth, and always in the deepest chambers of his palace there hung a single medallion, a golden token polished with care. On its back, carved in Tyrian script, was a single name, Ethan Cole. Closing line 4 in the end, it was not armies or wealth that saved a dynasty. It was a boy's courage, and a simple request that brought the mightiest Tycoon in the stars to tears.